Truly good. Recording in progress. So, this hour is dedicated to economy or new restorative ways of doing economy and democracy. We will be hearing first from Samuel and Luke that work with the positive money and various types of digital economy, and then hopefully we will have Roberto showing his appreciation system, which is based on 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐬𝐬, built on Ethereum. But I just want you guys to know that he is getting off a boat right now and has been trying to hook up through satellite, so it might be a bit delayed. So we'll play this by a little bit by heart. But I'd like maybe Luke, and I'm going to hand over to you, Luke and Samuel, and you guys take it and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, many thanks. Is the screen sharing working? I'm just trying it. Yes, it's working perfectly. Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Samuel, and Luke is here also from the organization Digital Democracy. And we are a newly started non-profit organization, and our aim is to support, promote and improve democracy throughout the whole society. We think that digitalization poses both challenges and new opportunities for democracy. So in this short introduction, I and Loki, we will present two main threats against democracy, and also two solutions that we believe in. Yeah, I can also say this. We have just launched an international webpage. Also, you can visit it later on. We are in the progress to translate it to English. Yeah. Okay. Two main threats against democracy in the digital era. So, to start with the first one, undemocratic money creation by private banks. We think this is a huge problem. The digital development has led to increased digital money creation by private companies. Nationally, in our different countries, money created by private banks have soon taken over almost the whole market. Today, only like 2 to 6% of the money supply, or the money that we spend daily, is traditional notes and coins issued by the state. The rest of the money is digital numbers in computers produced by private banks. So this is on the national level. If we look at the international level, there we have multinational companies like Facebook, Alipay, WeChat, etc. And they are planning to launch their own digital money with the aim of trying to take over the whole world market of money. So what is the problem then with this development that we see in our countries and in the world at the international arena? The problem, I would say, is that if we give up power over the production of money to privately owned big banks or to multinational corporations, then we lose power over the economy. It will be private companies instead of democracy that decides how much money that will be created and what the newly created money goes to, what we do with the money, with the new money. So the result then is an abundance of money for the financial industry. Newly created money is used to buy stocks, securities, real estates, etc. And prices are pushed up on these assets. The richest people who own most of the assets, they get even richer. And at the same time, there's lack of money for tackling climate change, for the citizens, for society, healthcare, schools, etc. So this is a first democracy, a serious democracy problem we have in the society today. A second problem is different kind of undemocratic structures of governance. So the digital development not only poses challenges for money creation, it only poses challenges for how to use the already existing money that we have in society, that different kind of organizations and states are using today. So the forms of representative democracy that is used in many international organizations, in municipalities, in country states, the kind of democracy where we often use paper ballots every 4th year to vote, and we have physical meetings and stuff like that. This kind of techniques for democracy, they were developed for a very slow and analog society without the digital technology that we have today. So the consequence of this is that today many important decisions are in fact made through the digital technology, like private chats where people are writing email, they're discussing, sending text messages, mobile phone calls, etc. And this digital development has allowed lobbyist organizations and careerists and a privileged group to coordinate themselves and to govern efficiently without giving citizens any real influence in the process. I would say that our democratic institutions and the methods we have the democratic methods that we use in many organizations and in countries, they have not caught up with this digital development. It is not possible to, it is impossible to counter fast and efficient digital lobbyism with slow physical meetings where everyone discusses and votes through analog methods. And moreover, today we have large spheres of the economy that still doesn't even pretend that they're democratically governed. Like for example, in many workplaces, most people are used to dictatorship as the main form of governance. You have a boss who decides everything that you should do, and this way of running an organization, it is very undemocratic and also inefficient, because the employees' knowledge, their motivation and creativity, they are not harnessed in an efficient way. International studies show, for example, that 63% of all employees, they are disengaged in their work, and that they only go to work because they want to get money. And that's a result of this way of governing our organization. So let us now ask the question, what can we do to improve democracy in the digital era today? And if we go back to the question of money is a way of organizing the society. Money is, with the power over money, you got the power to decide what other people should do. So I would say these two problems that we're discussing here, they are interlinked in the question, can we democratize money creation and decisions about the allocation of new money and decisions about the allocation of already existing money? Can we organize this in a smart democratic way? So to continue here, what do we have for kind of solutions here on the table? When it comes to this first problem, I would say that we have to democratize money creation. And it can be done, for example, through a state-issued digital currency that is discussed in many countries right now. if you want to know more about this solution, you can read more on, for example, Positive Money's webpage and EMMR. It's International Movement for Monetary Reform. They have good proposals for how this can be done. Their proposal is basically to let the government start to issue this new digital currency, and then we can withdraw all the subsidies and from the banking sector. So we can reduce banks to ordinary companies that can default. They can go bankrupt as other companies in the economy. And then this means that we will democratically decide over money creation through this new CBDC, decide how much money that should be issued and what we use, how we allocate new money in the economy. But yeah, I will not have time to go deeply into that now. So let's go to the second solution here.
Yes, perfect. So
and
my name is
Loke can continue here.
Yes, my name is 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐵, and I'm an economist in Sweden. Now I see that we don't have a lot of time left, so I will have to talk pretty quickly here.
Look, sorry to butt in, but don't feel too much stressed, because I think that our other speaker is lost at sea. So please take your time.
Then I will. Thank you. Yes. So first, I just want to add in on a few things that Samuel has mentioned. So we have a huge problem with democracy, but to really dive deep into it and to understand it, we have to first understand what democracy actually is. And democracy, as defined by the political scientist Robert Dahl, is the majority rule of the people over something by some method. For example, it can be the majority rule of the members of an organization, and they rule over the funds of that organization by some democratic method. And that could be, for example, by some proportionality method, where they vote what percentage of the money goes to what. And Dahl described it to have certain criteria that have to be met to some degree, that everyone has one vote, for example, and no more, no less, and a high rate of participation by the members of this organization is necessary, wide understanding of the process itself and of the various proposals to some degree, control over the agenda in this organization, and that the members is as inclusive as possible to those who are affected by the decisions themselves. And democracy, when defined like this, has various measures. For example, VDEM and the Democracy Index. They take these criteria and they weight them in different ways. And what has happened is that they are all showing that democracy right now is going down a lot. We have most of the world population, the share of the world population that live in autocratizing countries right now are 34%, while those who are living in the democratizing countries are only 4%. That means that most countries are in a standstill between becoming more democratic or less democratic, but the majority of the countries are becoming way more undemocratic, which is a huge issue. And especially in a time where we have a lot of global problems and existential risks, such as global warming, general artificial intelligence, and also an economic system itself that could fail and make a lot of people and companies go bankrupt. With these issues, we need cooperation to solve them. You know, with global problems, we need global solutions. And so on. So for this, we have to understand, first of all, why democracy is falling. And one main reason that has been pointed out is because of, well, the economy has failed in many countries, and then what follows is that the country becomes less democratic. But well, why does the economy fail in the first place? That is because it isn't democratic enough. So the solution, or the reason that's being discussed is that essentially democracy as we have it right now is not rational enough or not aligned enough with the people to actually solve these issues. We need alignment with what the people actually value, and at the same time have a smart democracy. We know that the direct democracy is very aligned with what the people want, but it can be very inefficient at times, while representative democracies can be very rational but less aligned with with the people that they're supposed to represent. So the solution to this is something called liquid democracy or delegative democracy, first described by the author of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll, who described the system as a mix between direct and representative democracy. And the system is based on, it is essentially direct democracy, but you're also able to delegate your vote to someone else who you trust in a certain area. That means you copy what they vote on in that area, but you can always take your vote back. And then the people you have in the executive offices, they have to carry out what the majority actually voted for. So in this case, you would have both alignment and potentially a more rational system. You have a higher collective intelligence, because in a world where people specialize and have the different know-how and the competences, you can delegate your vote to them. So I can delegate my vote to someone who knows a lot about the economy, for example, and I can delegate my in that area, and I can delegate my vote to someone who knows a lot about the environmental system, to someone who knows a lot about that. And whenever I feel that they are not voting aligned with my values, or they're not voting smart enough, I can change who I delegate my vote to. And I can always go in and alter the votes myself in various ways. And the typical criticisms to liquid democracy itself is that, well, to do this, you would have to vote online because delegation is pretty difficult to handle in an analog way. Well, that's true. Liquid democracy is only really feasible in a digitized world. But then if you vote online, maybe someone can force you to vote a certain way. But the studies have shown that that's not the case. In Estonia, for example, it rarely happens, and they have digital democracy. And we also know that it rarely happens more than it happens in countries where you actually vote on paper. And besides, you can have various technical solutions to this, that perhaps you get a code that's sent to you on a random date in the interval, for example, and you can only vote on a certain sub-interval. And someone mentioned that, well, this is not secure, etc. Well, but then, you can use decentralized ledger tech, and you can have, you put your votes in, and then they end up on some immutable blockchain, and you can check if the vote that's there is your vote by using encryption. And by using a zero knowledge proof, you can actually find out if all the voting has occurred correctly. So this can be proven to actually, that the votes has actually been counted correctly in such a system. But then the last and main criticism to this kind of system is that, you kind of need a tool for this, and such a tool doesn't exist. And that's why our organization has built one. So we have built an open source forum that's called Flowback. Somebody can switch slide.
Maybe you want to say something more about the other two tools we're building into this.
Yes, so we're also building various different tools into Flowback. To mention, I've mentioned the delegation with liquid democracy, of course, and what we have also shown, both by our experiments in the various organizations that actually use Flowback, and by other studies as well, is that people who have less competence and perhaps are also less intelligent in some cases, in some areas, they tend to delegate their vote to people who have higher intelligence and higher competence in those areas, which is a robust finding that we have, which is great. We have shown scientifically that this actually leads to a higher degree of rationality and to a better organization that is more aligned to the values of its members. And how we actually measured the competence of delegates, it seems difficult to do. Well, that's where prediction markets comes in. We allow each delegate to make predictions about each proposal, what will actually happen if it is implemented. And then the people get to vote what the outcome was, and the score of that delegate is changed based on their predictions. So a delegate making better predictions gets a higher score, and vice versa. The score doesn't matter to their vote right now, as in the forum we have now. It could matter to your vote if you wanted to have such a system, but it doesn't have to, because people see that, okay, this is someone aligned with my values, but they are pretty bad at making predictions, so I will not give my vote to them. Simple. And prediction markets have also been shown to work incredibly well. An example is Metaculus, where you only get, you get higher points if you make better predictions, some worse points if you make worse predictions. And people who actually keep making predictions are people who are interested in making predictions in those areas. And it turns out their average is a way better average than most single guesses, even single guesses of experts in the areas. And then we have something called quadratic voting as well, which has been developed by RxC, which is a partner to us, which is essentially spreading one's vote on different options at a more expensive cost, which means that, for example, you have some poll, and you get...
We have some more slides about quadratic voting. It depends on how much time we have left. Tim, would you like us to...
maybe try to round off a bit, because Roberto is here, and I also got a question from Julia.
Yes, then we jump over to
skip
quadratic voting, but you can read more about that on our website, so don't worry. So here are some pictures from Flowback version 2. To mention, Flowback is open source and also copyleft, which means that we can't take back the open source. So we're not some shady business like that. As you see, we have our front end that has been developed by a front end engineer, taking into account the opinions of the users. As I said, we have various organizations, for example, Positive Money Sweden, that they are using this forum. Not only can you vote for or against, but you can also rank all your votes, or even weight different alternatives, give them the different percentages of your vote. So you can your opinion can be fully represented. You never throw away your vote only because your first alternative doesn't go through. So this is real democracy that is only made feasible in the digital era, that can actually, we have scientific evidence that it can potentially solve the major issues that we have with our democratic institutions, and be like a main pillar in solving the problem, like these global issues that we have. So you can read more about Flowback as well on our website. So thank you for that. Yes, Tim, do you want me to answer the questions?
Yes, please. But let's just quickly, and then, because I think Yen also has a question, but Roberto just might need a few more minutes to get control. So let's just quickly see, because Julia wondered which organizations you collected your data from.
Yes, our data, our organization's data is only from Sweden. It has also been tried out in the US. We have links. We have the names of the studies written on our page under delegation, so you can read more about it there. But it has at least been tried in the US and Sweden as of now. Perhaps some other places too. I believe they link to it in these studies. Second questions: how do you deal with political bias and misinformation, liquid democracy? Could a right-wing extremist seen an expert by a moderate right-leaning voter send their vote to them? So first of all, the misinformation. Information is also something where you can actually rank how relevant information is by using liquid democracy. And it turns out, by these studies we carried out, is that people, again, tend to delegate to people in these various areas, the people who actually have more competence and are more aligned with their values. And it turns out that trolls and conspiracy theories, for example, they actually don't tend to get their voices heard much at all, unless you start off your forum with a lot of conspiracy theories, of course. But they are essentially ranked away, which is something that is very good to see. And a right-wing extremist could be seen as an expert. The thing is, if the right-wing extremist would make correct predictions about everything, which is of course unlikely, and if the voter believed that all of their values were aligned, I mean, they could delegate their vote to them. You are allowed to delegate your vote to anyone. But in such a forum that is more competent and more rational, people would be way less misinformed. So we have way less people who actually would delegate their votes to right-wing extremists, who we know don't have the answers, and who we also know are not very good at making predictions also.
Brilliant.
Yes. So
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luca and Samuel. And I should mention, you can stop sharing if you like.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you're interested more in this project, you're welcome to visit our webpage and follow us there. You can subscribe for our newsletter if you think this is interesting. Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I just wanted to say for everyone that we are, Luca and Samuel and I and the team are talking about how we integrate liquid democracy into 𝐂𝐸𝐷. So hopefully within a few months you will be able to use 𝐂𝐸𝐷 for those purposes too, which is, you know, which I think is going to be really amazing. There's some other really cool functions in Flowback, but we won't dive into them now. And that's also the reason I wanted you to stick around, Brad, so that you guys could connect. I think you'll have a lot to talk about. And Roberto, there we go. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Roberto, my brilliant friend who just got off the boat into Italy, I believe. The stage is yours, Roberto.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. I just landed in Italy after a wonderful month connecting with a lot of tribes and eco-villages in Portugal. It was beautiful. And I'm happy that I'm able to be here and talking about some of the cool projects that we're doing. And this is, we call it HOLONS. Can you see? Form membranes, value contributions, share rewards. It sounds so easy. So what is the problem definition is more that the current organization are organizations. They're not organisms. And you have all this kind of well-known issues with top-down command and control. And that when you have that, you have this kind of, okay, this is my organization or my project, and everybody that works with me is the people that work into my organization. And then you have all this non-transparent skewed salary, asymmetric decision-making, and a salary, which I call a rigid reward system. So when we look at, this is a model from Lalou, and when we look at this, we actually see that that is only one form of an evolving organizational structure that grows from reactive, impulsive, conformist, achievement, pluralistic, and then a new one that is basically an emergence form of organization. Let's say that the military is down here, corporation is up here, and then nonprofit or more like kind of a horizontal structures are here in this level. And then there's this that's color-coded as teal organizations. The issue with teal organization, when you don't have structure, you think like, maybe how can an organization or an organism survive without structure? Well, that was what we were looking at, and we could see, like I was here, when you talk about companies, this hierarchical structure. In hackathons, maybe you have if you think about it, there is a structure which is maybe a track or a purpose, maybe an SDG. And then you have organizations within these SDGs that are actually working independently. So it's a soft form of top-down structure where then the purpose is the one that drives you. But what we're actually looking at is how can we get all of the people to collaborate with each other as if it would be an organism, where then the relations between the people is actually what matter and not the buckets where we put them in, right? And that's why we came up with this concept. Okay, we didn't come up with the concept of a holon, but we're using it because it really represents the piece of technology that we're proposing, which is an abstraction of every membrane or boundary. And it can represent human cells or human groups, as you see here in this fractal view of belonging from micro-solidarity, where there is a self, a partnership, and then you're included in a crew, which is included in a congregation, which is included in a crowd. Sorry. So what an holon is actually is a sort of an organism, a self-organizing structure that can be actually composed by other holons. Holons means be a whole and a part at the same time. And so being whole and part, you can actually, you can self-contain an holon within itself, which is a little bit mind-blowing. But let's actually see how this works. What we can do is we can create a membrane around anything. So let's start with the easiest membrane, is the membrane of yourself. And that circle that you see around it is the representation of the membrane. Then I noticed that there is another membrane, which is any of you. And the idea is like, okay, let's try to form a partnership between me and you. And we're going to be creative and call it us. Right? Then, but that is a membrane of its own. And as us, we realize that there is also them, which is actually based on they, and maybe that they, it's also you, right? We don't actually know who they are. And but what's important that us and them, we can actually just put another member around us and we call it we. And you can go as far as you like. You can nest anything. We can nest we inside the you. So we can really go as far as we want, forming this graph of membranes. So why would you form a membrane? Because you have all this different reason to do it. Maybe you have a shared purpose, a shared practice, shared ideas, shared projects, shared places that the membrane can represent your eco-village. Also trust, or why not resources, as resources become a graph that feed into each other, into maybe making a car, right? Is the holon of all the parts that makes a car up, which is the holon of all the parts that makes that part up, and all the resources. Anyway, once we form this membrane, what we can do is share appreciation. So give love, in this case, or any kind of gratitude towards what is actually functioning for you. So what does it mean? That if we want to, if we consider like a membrane, a group of people, one way to actually highlight what is contributing toward the success of the membrane is the membrane itself giving kudos or reward or thanks or whatever you want to call them. I just call it appreciation of some sort. And as such, you're able to highlight within your membrane who's contributing towards the purpose of the membrane. And you could choose. We're not there to say what that is. Somebody might say, we're all in this together, so let's all give appreciation to all of us because we're in there. some might say, why not give the person that has contributed more hours more appreciation, right? So it's all depending on the forming of this membrane. And after that happens, what we can do is use this information to share any sort of reward in a membrane, like in an organism that would be a blood flow, so that you can directly, the people or the members of this membrane will basically decide who should get rewarded whenever a reward appears. And now in the age of Web3, that reward could be anything from a token to a beer token, or some money or some access. So anything that can be digitally shared and given can then be splitted across all the members of the membrane according to the what the members said. So what are the benefit of this is that we can just simply start to form membranes and create organizations or organism at any scale, where a group can contribute to another group and a person is part of the other group. So we're contributing across organization, and that allows to innovate openly. It allows to build trust, and really ultimately it allows us to collaborate with each other into anything that we think is important, without having to be bound in silos and with power dynamics that comes from monetary rewards. You can even start without money at all, right? So now I can actually show how this looks quickly. So this is, by the way, I forgot to say, this is actually not living in a specific location, it's actually living throughout the internet. So that means that every time I click somewhere, I'm actually going to a specific website that, where there is a piece of information that I dropped there. And that piece of information indicates where the links to the other holons are. So for instance, this is my holon, where you can see my friends, my location, my projects, right? So of course, when I click on my friends, I don't have many friends, unfortunately. I click on my location, you see the location in which I'm involved. So inside the location, now here I'm actually reading something not from my database. I'm actually reading this directly from the internet. And in there, I can see the projects. And these are actually projects on GitHub. So when I click the information that actually shows up here, it's actually coming from GitHub. But more interestingly than having a graph that you can just navigate and is based on the internet and nothing else, the interesting thing is that we can go, for instance, to my wallet, and there it's actually, you would see here, my wallet is an Ethereum address, and that Ethereum address is actually the membrane of this group here. And what I can do, I can decide for any transaction that gets sent to this membrane, I can decide who should receive what, how much percentage, right? So if I save this, then it means that any transaction that is going to be sent to this group is going to be divided according to me with these percentages. But the system is smart because it actually takes all the percentages of all the people before doing the actual decision of dividing this reward system. And of course, as I said, every holon can be an holon. So this is an holon. So I can just enter in there and realize that I'm also in there. And also test. But I can go inside test and I'm also in there. Right, so anything that would be split at any point, I will be able to receive from anywhere, any membrane I'm contributing to, I will be able to receive some value should I be appreciated. Should I convince the other people that they should actually raise up the appreciation to me. And how do I do that? By simply being nice and collaborating. So this is a little bit of a helicopter view of what's happening here. but I just wanted to say that we're with the 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐬 platform that you see before, that is beautiful. You can actually include also this kind of concept in the circles that you're actually making as membranes. So I think we could safely say that this is also coming to 𝐂𝐨𝐽 soon. And pass the flag.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Would you just stop sharing, then I can see everyone on the screen? It would be amazing. And did you mention too that when you divide up, if you're a group of 5 people, you can divide to everybody, but not to yourself?
Yeah, I didn't mention, but good that you mentioned.
It's an important thing, I think.
Yeah, because it's very important to love ourselves. I think it actually starts from there. But when we are in an organism and when we're giving appreciation, we can't just say, "Oh, it's easy. I did everything," right? You actually need to kind of give it outwards and say, "Thank you for helping out on that. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this." And you need to have the others tell something about what you did, right, instead of yourself. So that is a little, it's a little feature that is very important for making this system function.
Brilliant. I think it's a beautiful system. Like all systems, there are naturally pitfalls, and maybe Roberto, you could just mention the idea of that some people might get nothing, and that wouldn't also be great. Or you can see who never gets anything, but then again, maybe that is part of nature.
Yeah, it's a little bit the cruel part of nature, I would say. But if for a reason or not, you could say like you actually are contributing, but your contributions are not being seen and not being appreciated, and basically you remain at the end on the bottom of the scale. The question then would be like, what are you doing with a group of people that do not appreciate your contribution? Go where you can contribute, right? At the same time, it is a function that is necessary to sort of like, so you're not bound to only one organization and you're going to dry out if that organization does not appreciate you. The idea with Holon is that you will be contained into hundreds of organizations, maybe even in all of the Sustainable Development Goals organization. That could be like this kind of like big collection, or you name it, any collection that basically create many projects. You are a designer. Where are you contributing? You choose that, right? And as you contribute, for sure, there will be appreciation coming your way. But also there are others way to do, as I said, appreciation is only one of the way. Maybe you want to do a hybrid Holon where basically 50% of anything that arrives to the Holon gets shared equally, and then the rest of the 50% gets shared using appreciation. So in this way, nobody really stays dry. But what it's important to do though, if you want that everybody's within the organization of everybody, you really you want somehow to make sure that people that are just join and right now are not contributing, that they basically are not receiving part of the reward. Otherwise, it's convenient for everybody to just be everywhere and just do nothing. But I hope that the culture that is going to use this kind of system is that you are part of the system because you actually want to contribute and not just to extract rewards.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roberto. We have slightly limited time, but I would like to touch on one of the things we're working on in Social Systems Lab and 𝐂𝐨𝐽. That is, we call the altruistic wallet. I'll just post a link here if you guys would like to read up a bit more on it. So I'll just take a few minutes, just rather than sharing screen, I'll just walk you through the idea, and then we'll have a little round of questions, and then we see how we connect and we move forward. So yes, 5 minutes. Thank you very much. So the altruistic wallet sort of was born as an idea when in the early days before 𝐂𝐨𝐽 was called 𝐂𝐨𝐽, was called Crowdpod in those days, and we were thinking, okay, we want to build this network for democracy, and we need to do it based on membership fees because we don't want to take any money from outside that's going to put demands on us. And that's cool. Well, what if we get 1 million users, you know, then, and if everybody's paying like $10 a year, then that's $10 million. We don't need that much money. We don't have shareholders that want that money. So what we do with that surplus? Well, if you were a traditional non-profit, you'd put that money to fund, and then people could like write applications, and then maybe 1 out of 20 would get that money. So you'd like create all these extra steps to figure out how to divide that money up in a very inefficient way. Or you could just simply return whatever money you don't use to the members as a form of dividends. But of course, if you do that, then people could be like, oh, wow, I got like $5 back this year. I'll go buy myself a few ice creams or, you know, half a meal. So the idea is, well, how do we recycle that back into the community? So we created this concept called the altruistic wallet. So basically you get money back into your altruistic wallet, but you can't actually spend it on yourself. You can only spend it on a community project. So that way you recycle the money back into the system. And the system validates and decides what type of project is eligible. What kind of project is sufficiently appropriate for the collective money to go to. And again, you can do liquid democracy here. You can simply say, well, I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to give my wallet content to Robert because I think he's way more knowledgeable than I am. Or I could simply say, I'm going to put $10,000 into the system, and I want that $10,000 to be shared up between wallets that have had high success rates before, or are run by women who live in sub-Saharan Africa, or have a specific type of orientation or direction they're going to. So basically, I could take my $10 I put into the system, or $10,000, and tokenize it, and then stipulate that this money can only go to SDR number 14. So it actually can't be released into any project that is not this type of project. So there's lots of things you can do with this, with that type of system. So if you're curious about that, then definitely you can read the link and let me know if you want to dive deep into that discussion. I think it really relates to both the holons that Roberto described, and also the democracy, economic democracy that Luke and Samuel spoke about, like using delegation in these systems and tokenization. So I think that can be, and you can also down the line start using these altruistic tokens as sort of payments within the system. So like if I do somebody for a favor, they pay me some, they give me some altruistic tokens that I down the line can use to put into a project. So the tokens could travel around the system until that point that they get released as fiat currency and go out into the real world and buy things to produce projects, get results. But the beauty of this system is not only it's not just about money. Yeah, I could also put in my time. So like if I'm a game designer like Sharon, I could say, well, I'm prepared to give 10 hours a month of my time, which is worth this much, to help you with gamifying whatever you're building, if it's in line with what I believe in. So you can now you can put that into your altruistic wallet. Or like I have a wheelbarrow, I can put that into my altruistic wallet. Does anybody need a wheelbarrow? I can lend it or donate it to your project. So all of a sudden you have a lot of different assets in a system that you can call upon. So you no longer just don't need, you can look, well, okay, I need this much money to build this kindergarten, but hang on, here's somebody that has like 2 tons of bricks that they're not using that I could use, and here's somebody who can sort of has got 5 old whiteboards, and here's someone. So I could actually start sourcing resources, which means all of a sudden I don't need as much money as I thought I did, because I can get a lot of the work done through volunteer work or through other assets. So an idea of like matching assets within a greater ecosystem, and I think that is very much what Kodu is attempting to achieve, like with the matchmaking. It's not just matchmaking people with projects, but matching projects with the resources with people, etc., etc. So building a fairly complex system, and that's something we really want to dive into. So yes, well, we have maybe 5 minutes of discussion to go. I'd like to invite anybody who has any questions or thoughts, just pop a hand up and jump in, and we can explore together. Bart, I'm sure you have a question. You're looking very handsome there with your upper chest torso, with me with my beanie on.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm just seeing, kind of processing this in the background, like how it all connects and how similar it is to the kind of visions that we are developing with GaiaNet. And so, well, I'm just going to ask you the question, like, how do you see this all weave together? Like what Roberto is proposing here, what you aim to do with Kodo, how are we going to make these projects work together? Because we are wanting to create the same thing. Do you think we already need to work together, or is it better that we go our own tracks, develop prototypes, and then from there see how it weaves together? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, I'd say like the sooner we can prototype together, the stronger we'll be. I mean, nature seeks to connect with itself, everything, you know, there's no such thing as a single tree. There's a forest, there's mycelium, everything is interconnected. I'm sure Julia West could speak to that for hours, but everything speaks to everything in the system. And we need to do that too. We need to get away from this concept of empire, where we have dominion, and we have to move into a concept of democracy, where we communicate. So for me, for the altruistic wallet, for instance, is a totally open project. We could deploy it in the Kodo ecosystem, but if it's going to be powerful, it should be able to be deployed in GaiaNet on anywhere. So the idea is, and what we move towards decentralization, is that in the end, if we play our cards right, you know, it really doesn't, the flag doesn't matter. There won't be a single container, but you're like a node, a piece, a part of the mycelium that is linking to everything else, and you're just using these systems, and we find what are the most effective ways of sharing resources. So the sooner we can do this as a collective effort, I think the better. And I think we should even start at an even more basic level of identity, decentralized identity, because, you know, there's lots of offer for that, but it's usually by a kind of private, tokenized blockchains that want them to use your tech so they make money. And we need to build something that belongs to everyone and that doesn't have any steps to entry. So we've got a few more minutes. Robert?
Yeah, super. Thanks, Tim and Bart, for asking the question, because I think the GaiaNet team and the Kodo team and other teams, they are circling around each other for some exploring time, and for a couple of months now, I think we've been sort of getting ready for this phase. And I think the connectathon is an important part of it, because you always see energies being launched after that. So I sense a nice co-creative session coming up, hopefully with Roberto and Laura, maybe perhaps being the hosts in Italy at Liminal Village would be fantastic. And then we see how we can take things from there. And if maybe other people that have become enthusiastic, what they have seen and heard here, they can chime in. So thanks a lot.
Fantastic, yes. Please, and yeah, please reach out to anyone. Sam was building something similar, and we'll try in the next 2 weeks to bring us all together in a Zoom room or a Jitsi room and have a conversation. It'd be fantastic. So going to try to round off this hour, 1 minute to go. But yeah, thank you so much for being here and being part of this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to where we take it next. Fantastic. So I'm going to press the stop record button. There we go.